Hello, my name is Christopher Bolduc, and today I'll be talking about the history and characteristics of rhythm in Bossa Nova. The origins of Bossa Nova lie in the diverse musical genre known as samba, or samba carioca. Carioca being a demonym used to refer to anything related to the city of Rio de Janeiro. Samba is generally said to have originated in the northeastern coast of Brazil, around the city of Salvador, in the state of Bahia. Samba takes its name from the African Angolan musical style, semba, which also has its own distinctive dance traditions. The word samba has been present in the Portuguese language at least since the 19th century. Mixing of cultures in Brazil. Portugal pioneered the European charting of sea routes that were the first and only channels of interaction between all of the world's continents. This consequently began the process of globalization. In 1494, the two kingdoms of Spain and Portugal divided the New World between themselves. In 1500, Pedro Álvares Cabral landed in modern-day Brazil and laid claim to it. The Portuguese brought upwards of 3 million slaves, primarily from West Africa, to work on plantations. These slaves mostly worked on sugar plantations, but were eventually ordered to work on cattle ranches, foodstuff production, and cultivating coffee. Brazil received over 40% of the total number of African slaves brought over to the Americas. Slavery was eventually abolished in Brazil on May 13, 1888, when the Princess Imperial Isabel signed the quote-unquote Golden Law, Lei Áurea, freeing all children born to slave parents. Many natives were also enslaved, but many more were spared because of the Jesuits, who proposed not waging war and enslaving them. The action of the Jesuits saved many natives from slavery, but also disturbed their ancestral way of life, and inadvertently helped spread infectious diseases against which the Aborigines had no natural defenses. Origins of rhythm in samba. African slaves practiced candomblé secretly while they were quote-unquote praying to Catholic saints of the Portuguese. The rhythm most similar to samba in African diasporic religions would be the rhythm used for a Yorubic god named Eyansa, god of winds, lightning, violent storms, death, and rebirth. Check out this clip from the BBC documentary Samba to Bossa Nova, with a practitioner of candomblé playing the rhythm for Eyansa. The basic rhythm is shown here, normally played by a gongue.
O ritmo que é mais parecido no candomblé com o samba seria ritmo utilizado para Inhansã, né? É que o gan dirige dessa forma.
The establishment of samba. The process of establishing itself as a musical genre began in the 1910s and had its inaugural landmark in the song Pelo Telefone. Note the influences of the rhythmic symbolism of the candomblé god Eyansa in this music. Samba was modernly structured as a genre in the late 1920s, from the neighborhoods of Estácio and extended all the way into Oswaldo Cruz in Rio de Janeiro. Out of samba arose choro, a popular Brazilian music genre that originated in Rio de Janeiro. This music often has a fast and happy rhythm. It is characterized by virtuosity, improvisation, and subtle modulations full of syncopation and counterpoint. This style was popularized by a musician known as Pixinguinha. His most famous song was Carinhoso. This song was criticized by many for being overly influenced by foreign music. Despite this, his music was widely heard in a popular band known as Os Oito Batutas. Politics and Samba. President Getulio Vargas seized power with military help in 1930. He controlled Brazil for 18 years, first as a dictator and then as a democratically elected president. For some context, he admired the European fascists of Mussolini and Hitler. Vargas based his ideas off of the fact that Brazil should celebrate its racial mixing. He spread the message through the new invention of radio stations and promoted samba. The Vargas administration wanted to use samba to unify Brazil, but in return it was demanded that samba should change. Brazilian Carnival and Samba. In 1936, it was announced that all samba musicians could take part in the yearly Carnival parade in Rio, one that was previously only allowed for whites. The new strict rules required samba schools to present a national theme with a patriotic lesson. Carnival sambas tell the history of Brazil through music. After World War II, samba canção was appropriated by the middle class and lower class sambas were censored. The middle class favored a more melodic and sophisticated style. Therefore, the samba canção was born. This was aided by exceptional composers like Ari Barroso. Samba canção could be sung by individuals as well as mass bands. Dorival Caymmi became samba's first solo singer and songwriter. Carmen Miranda was a Portuguese-born Brazilian samba singer, dancer, Broadway actress, and film star who was active from the 1930s until her death in 1955. She became an international symbol and even quite famous in Hollywood. Her music was written by some great Brazilian composers of the day, Dorival Caymmi and Ari Barroso. Carmen Miranda was important in the development of samba sincopado. Samba sincopado is a style that accentuates syncopation, as its name suggests. It is sometimes called samba do telecoteco. This style emphasizes virtuosity, but usually also contains elaborate melodies and a quote-unquote broken or syncopated rhythm. Check out this short clip of Nelson Faria playing in the samba sincopado style. The Vargas administration signed the Good Neighbor Agreement with the USA in 1939. Links between the US and Brazil began to grow. In this time, Carmen Miranda arose and became an international symbol. Carmen Miranda was heavily criticized in the 1940s by Brazilians for being, quote-unquote, too American, embracing what they called as too much commercialism and projecting a negative image of Brazil. Weeks later, Miranda responded to the criticism with the Portuguese song Disseram que voltei americanizada, meaning they say I've come back Americanized.
E disseram que eu voltei americanizada, com burro do dinheiro que estou muito rica.
After the fiasco with Carmen Miranda in Brazil, Luiz Gonzaga rose in popularity, presenting the quote-unquote rich universe of northeastern Brazilian music, creating the baio style. One of his most famous songs is Hora do Adeus. Here's a small section of this music.
Modéstia paz, mas se eu não desafio, desde o tempo de menino.
Luiz Gonzaga was compared to Elvis Presley. Many called him the Elvis Presley of northern Brazil. He invented the stereotypical figure of the northeasterner wearing leather clothes. This is where music with the heartbeat, quote-unquote, rhythm arose. Gonzaga was similar to Bob Marley in reggae because of his melding of styles. He appeared on a radio show hosted by Ari Barroso. He thought that Barroso's nationalistic samba could be matched with northern dance music. At this time, workers from the poor farmlands of the north moved south for work. Gonzaga wrote dance songs about the lives of the migrants. Listen to this song titled Paraíba by Luis Gonzaga. Note the rhythmic underpinning shown in the score. The characteristic heartbeat occurs in the lower drums, traditionally played by a zabumba. Jackson de Banderio further incorporated West African rhythms into samba. His song Capoeira Mata lays out the basic rhythmic structure of the Baio style. In 1956, new president Juscelino Kubitschek set out to transform Brazil in a new way. In Brazil, the word bossa is old-fashioned slang for something done with particular charm, natural flair, or innate ability. As early as 1932, Noel Rosa used the word in a samba. The phrase bossa nova literally means new trend or new wave. Bossa nova came from the middle class and was for the middle class. It reflected a trend in the growing middle class. The fact that there was not much space in crowded cities also meant that musicians needed a softer musical style. Out of this arose bossa nova. There are three very important figures in bossa nova: Antonio Carlos Jobim, João Gilberto, and Vinicius de Moraes. A bossa nova is a quote-unquote soft samba, usually played in a slower tempo. Bossa nova is most commonly performed on the nylon string classical guitar, played with the fingers rather than with the pick. Its purest form could be considered unaccompanied guitar with vocals, as created, pioneered, and exemplified by João Gilberto. Even in larger, jazz-like arrangements, there is almost always a guitar that plays the underlying rhythm. Gilberto basically took one of the several rhythmic layers from a samba ensemble, specifically the tamborim, and applied it to the picking hand. A bossa nova is simple in style, with very light, soft singing and percussion. The percussion often only uses brushes. The instrumentation also usually includes a classical guitar and vocals. Bossa nova is characteristically written in 2/2 cut time or 2/4 time. Antonio Carlos Jobim was a composer, pianist, songwriter, arranger, and singer. He is considered one of the great exponents of Brazilian music. He internationalized the bossa nova and merged it with jazz. Jobim is known as the father of bossa nova, along with João Gilberto. He wrote many famous songs such as Chega de Saudade, One Note Samba, and Dia Afinado, to name a few. Listen to this short excerpt of Chega de Saudade, also known as No More Blues. It is often considered to be the first recorded bossa nova song. The song was first recorded in 1957 by Brazilian singer Elisete Cardoso. This excerpt is from the album Inédito. This album was privately commissioned by Tom Jobim and released in 1987 in a limited edition to commemorate his 60th birthday. It was re-released in 1995 for the general public. João Gilberto was a singer, songwriter, and guitarist. He is often called the father of bossa nova, along with Antonio Carlos Jobim. His style combines traditional elements of samba with more contemporary jazz. Gilberto was known for his demanding acoustic and noise control standards. For example, during a recording session of the song Rosa Morena, he insisted on 28 takes to get the proper pronunciation of the O in Rosa. Desafinado is a Portuguese word, usually written into English as out of tune or off key. The music was composed by Antonio Carlos Jobim with lyrics by Newton Mendonça. I find this song particularly beautiful. Listen to the way Gilberto sings in such a strikingly quiet way. It's almost as if he's telling only you this story. The music is simple and full of grace, but also incorporates many accented passing tones with very wide and dissonant leaps in the melody.
Se você disser que eu desafino amor, saiba que isto em mim provoca imensa dor. Só privilegiados têm ouvido igual ao seu. Eu possuo apenas o que Deus me deu.
Vinicius de Moraes was a poet, lyricist, essayist, and playwright. His poetry generally revolves around the subjective mood of sexual love. In 1956, he released his first samba, Quando tu passas por mim, meaning when you pass by, which was composed with Antonio Maria. He met Tom Jobim collaborating on a musical, Orfeo de Conceição, meaning Orpheus of the Conception, in 1956. In 1958, the singer Elisete Cardoso released her album Canção de Amor Demais, meaning Song of Too Much Love, marking the beginning of bossa nova. He then began to collaborate with Tom Jobim, writing words for many of his compositions. The songs of Jobim and Moraes were recorded by numerous Brazilian singers and performers of that time. Renditions of many Jobim Moraes numbers on João Gilberto's first, second, and third albums established the sound and repertory of bossa nova and influenced a generation of singers and songwriters, especially in Rio de Janeiro. Among these, Vinicius de Moraes wrote lyrics for Garota de Ipanema, Chega de Saudade, and Insensatez. Vinicius de Moraes also worked with Baden-Powell. He is credited with changing young people's behavior. Like, for example, he was the first one to wear sandals when everybody else was dressed up tight. Check out this short clip of Moraes, Baden-Powell, and a small choir rehearsing Canto de Osenia.
Vai, 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 vai. Amar. Vai, 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 vai. Sofrer. Vai, 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 vai. Chorar. Vai, vai, vai. Dizer eu não sou ninguém. Nem conversa de esquecer a tristeza de amor de paixão. Não, eu só vou se for pra ver uma estrela aparecer na manhã de novo amor.
Fusion with jazz. In the early 1960s, bossa sets in the bars of Rio de Janeiro began to play with local jazz enthusiasts, like Sergio Mendes. This fusion was aided by the United States sponsorship to visit Brazil. Musicians like Charlie Bird and Herbie Mann went to visit Brazil. Charlie Bird enthused about bossa nova to his friend Stan Getz. They released a record titled Jazz Samba in 1962. The Girl from Ipanema was probably the most well-known hit in America. Check out this short excerpt of The Girl from Ipanema from the famous 1964 album Getz Gilberto.
Moça do corpo dourado do sol de Ipanema, o seu balançado é mais que um poema, é a coisa mais linda que eu já vi passar. Ah, porque estou tão sozinho.
Elements in the Americanized bossa nova. Jazz musicians loved bossa nova because of its clear melodic lines and harmonies that used extended triads, 7th, 9th, 11th, and 13th chords. The syncopated rhythms fit well in the evolution of the jazz idiom. Many Brazilian traditionalists, including Tom Jobim, argued that bossa nova was taking too much from jazz in its later development, particularly in its harmonic language. These traditionalists argued that bossa nova should use elements of jazz as a sprinkle or spice, rather than jazz incorporating bossa nova. The genre ended up virtually coming to an end after around 1964 or 1965, when there was a split with some bossa nova musicians moving to America and some staying in Brazil. From then on and to today, the genre is still alive and transforming. There is so much more I would love to expand on in the future. This is one of my favorite genres, with music that speaks right to the heart regardless of one's background. I hope you all enjoyed this video and gathered some information about the history and characteristics of bossa nova. Let me know what you think in the comments below and subscribe for more.